This event today is part of our new customer spotlight series. So we'll be highlighting people like Ivan that are developer and QA experts that are championing the testing process at their companies, and they volunteered to share their knowledge and expertise with the Cypress community. So we are very grateful at Cypress to have you. And today we'll be covering the process of setting up Cypress tests within Azure DevOps ecosystem. So he'll kind of talk through the setup and then also some more advanced features and considerations as well. So if you go to the next slide, I'm Jess. I am a product marketing manager at Cypress. And I told Ivan we had to share fun facts about ourselves. I know that's it's kind of a trope, but mine is that I got a fish hook stuck in my nose when I was a kid, and it had to be surgically removed, and you can still see kind of a line. Don't ask me how I did it. I don't even know, but it was a pretty bad experience for mostly my parents. I didn't actually it didn't bother me too much, I guess, when I was there. So Ivan, please introduce yourself, share a little bit about your role and fun fact about yourself as well, and then I'll hand it over to you for the rest of our content.
Yeah, thanks, Jess. So hi, everyone. My name is Ivan. I'm working as a staff QA engineer at Prospa. So I've been working as a QA engineer for more than 10 years, and currently mostly focusing on automation testing. I'm based in Australia. Actually, I moved from China to Australia in, I think, 2015. Yeah. So fun fact about me. So my university majority is information and computing science. So when I enrolled in this majority, I thought should be from Faculty of Engineering or Faculty of Computing. But when I joined when I enrolled in the university, I found, okay, no, this is the Faculty of Maths. So, I learned a lot of math subjects in the university. Probably this is the reason why I'm a software tester, not a software engineer. Yeah, fun fact. Okay, now, before we go into today's agenda, I want to give you some of the brief introduction about Prospa. Prospa is a financial technology company building cash flow products and services for the small business, like owners, small business in both Australia and New Zealand. We have more than 300 employees across Australia, New Zealand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. There are more than 21,000 active customers in Prospa. We already originated more than $3.4 billion of loans since inception. The majority of our customers are from our partners. So there are around 15K distributed partners at Prospa. Then the next question is, okay, you as a QA, what types of tests you have at Prospa? One question, how many of you are aware of or know what is test pyramid? I don't know whether you can raise hand or not. Cool, I see one. Anyone else? Oh, so many. Okay, then that's it. It's easy. So from this picture, we can see from the bottom to the top, we have unit tests, integration tests, or we can call it as API tests. Then we have end-to-end tests or UI tests. As you know from this picture, the cost or the timing from the top will be longer than the one from the middle and bottom. So at Prospa, we are working on all these kind of tests. Developers are mainly focusing on unit test cases. We have a very standard CI/CD pipeline check to make sure, okay, the coverage is met. If it's not met or missing some unit test cases, it will fail the whole CI/CD pipeline. QA engineers are mainly focusing on integration test, API tests, and UI automation. But we have the practice we have to automate as many integration tests as possible compared with UI tests, because as I mentioned before, UI tests takes longer time to run. For example, we have a very simple submission form from the website. What we will do is we simply automate the happy path for this form submission. Regarding the field check or mandatory field check, we will work with front-end developers to create those unit test cases from front-end side. Okay, agenda. Bear with me, this webinar is a little bit technical, probably for some of you guys. Firstly, I will give some introduction regarding, okay, Azure, what is Azure DevOps, and some introduction regarding the YAML file. We are using YAML file to drive the CI/CD pipelines. Then the question is why we choose Cypress and Cypress Cloud. There are different types of automation tools in the market. Why we choose Cypress? After we know about Cypress Cloud, and Azure pipelines, I will share the basic framework setup at Prospa, which is kind of unique to Prospa or unique to our ecosystem. Then after that, I will introduce how we integrate the Cypress test with Azure pipelines, how we can make it work for the developers and QAs. Last but not least, I will share some enhancements we did for this whole ecosystem. Okay, Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure is just a cloud computing platform run by Microsoft. Some of you may use AWS or Google Cloud. It's just a cloud computing platform. There are different types of services or resources in Azure or provided by Azure, like app services. You can use app services to deploy your application, deploy your code. SQL database or Cosmos DB. You can use SQL database to store some of the structured data, unstructured data. You can store them in Cosmos DB. There are another two types of resources I want to talk about. We will explain it later in the next few slides. One is Azure Key Vault. Another one is virtual machines or scale set. So since Prospa is a financial company, we have some secure data like customer data, or when we do the API testing, we have some client ID or client secrets. This data, we cannot simply store them in the test folder and upload or publish in the GitHub. So we are using Azure Key Vaults to store those data. When we want to run the test, we will download those data from Azure Key Vaults. Another one is virtual machines or scale set. DevOps team helped us to set up this scale set. Scale set is a kind of wrap-up of the virtual machines. It makes it easier for us to maintain or to spin up or do the auto-scaling about the virtual machines. We are running the test in our own dedicated virtual machines, not any other third-party cloud platform. I will explain it in details, like how we integrate with Cypress Cloud. TypeScript. So, sorry, Azure DevOps first. Azure DevOps is just a SaaS platform, software as a service. There are different services there. So it's mainly used by developers to do the deployment. So in Azure DevOps, there are different components there. They have Azure boards, which is similar to Jira boards. They have like Azure repos, similar to GitHub or any other Bitbucket, like version control tools. But in this webinar, I will mainly talk about the Azure pipeline, like CI/CD pipelines, and also the agent pool, which is to connection with the virtual machines I mentioned before. Then we can run the test in this kind of agent pool. TypeScript. Yeah, we just migrated most of our tests from JavaScript to TypeScript. You can click this link to find out the very detailed instruction provided by Cypress on how to migrate. TypeScript is just an extension of JavaScript, like adding types check to the language. So TypeScript can help you save a lot of time on coding. So they have auto completion. They have like types check. You can find the errors before you run the tests. Last, YAML file. YAML file is just someone called it as a makeup language, or some developers may call it as another types of development language. This is just a user readable language, mainly be used for design the configuration file. So we are using YAML file to trigger or to drive our CI/CD pipeline. Okay. In terms of why we choose Cypress, there is a story behind the scene. So when I joined Prospa, we were using Angular to implement most of our portals and websites. So we were using Protractor, which is Angular-friendly automation tool to create and run automation tests. But after a few months, we made the decision to migrate from Angular to React. Anyways, project tests are still working fine for React, but we found many issues for Protractor. The first one is, I don't know whether you guys used Protractor or not. For Protractor, it's a kind of a wrap-up for the WebDriver IO. So you need to download the WebDriver to connect to the real browsers to run the test. But because we were running the test in another cloud platform like BrowserStack, we are not maintaining the BrowserStack agent machines or virtual machines. We can see some conflict between the WebDriver version and the browser version in the BrowserStack. Sometimes we can find or we can see some connection issue because the version is conflicted. And also for Protractor, they don't have any auto wait feature. We need to add our own functionality to handle the timeout issues. Then I did the research online and found Cypress. I can't remember why I didn't try other tools, but anyways. So for Cypress, we can simply use one automation framework for both UI and API. So you don't need to use a different tool for UI, another tool for API. Like I used, I think, Selenium with Java to do UI automation before, and I used another tool, Java-based, REST assured to do API automation. But with Cypress, you don't need to worry about different frameworks. You can use the same framework. Another cool feature, which is like unique to Cypress, is Cypress app. So as you can see from this screenshot, you can make the decision like which specs I want to run, and also with integration with Cypress Cloud. If you already integrated with Cypress Cloud, you can get the results from the CI/CD pipeline under that debug menu. You can see the failures. You don't need to find the failures from the CI/CD pipeline. Okay, this spec is failing. I want to run it from local, but you need to find out which spec is failing. With this integration, you can simply see under the debug menu or debug panel, simply to see, okay, this spec is failing from the CI/CD pipeline. You can simply one click to run the test from your local. You can do the debugging as easy as possible. Real-time debugging, I didn't get the screenshot for another tool or app, that is Test Runner. With the Test Runner, you can do the real debugging. You can check the response or check the request body for API automation. You can simply check the screenshot, like the UI element state before or after some of the actions, which is make much easier to do the debugging. In terms of Cypress Cloud, as I mentioned before, previously, we were running tests in BrowserStack. BrowserStack, they host the virtual machines by themselves. We don't have any control for those virtual machines. Yeah, as I mentioned, we may have different versions for browsers. And also because for Prospa, we have some like internal websites or private websites, which is not public. In order to make them run in the BrowserStack, we have to work with BrowserStack to add some firewalls to whitelist the IPs from BrowserStack. But this is not intended in terms of security. Our security team is pretty concerned about this. Another thing is regarding the pricing. So you can check from their website. It's a little bit, not a little bit, it's much expensive than Cypress. Okay, now we know Cypress Cloud. So in order to make it work, we should have some kind of basic framework setup. This is the framework setup by us at Prospa, but I think you can find similar framework from online. I think there is no big differences between different frameworks. Anyway, I think framework should look similarly for different tools, which is not dependent on which tool you are using. The framework should be similar, like we have the page object model, we have the pages folder. So by Cypress, if you download and install Cypress, it will create some default folders, default configuration files for you. The first folder is E2E. So this folder is mainly for UI automation. With the new version, you will have another folder probably called component testing. So E2E is used to store your test specs. For enums, as I mentioned before, we are using TypeScript. So we are using enums to store some of the constant values, like page title or HTTP status code. So we can easily refer to those enums to do the verification. We don't need to hard code those constant values in our test cases or test specs. Interfaces, this is another usage of TypeScript. We are storing or we are creating some interfaces mainly for API automation, for store the request or response for the skeleton. So with this interface, we can emulate some of the issues like, okay, which property I want to verify. It will be auto-populated if you have these interfaces with TypeScript. Services similar to interfaces, mainly for API automation, we wrap up the site or request function provided by Cypress to create some functions to do the real endpoint verification. Like you can see, we send the site or request and we verify the response body or response code. It's just a wrap up. This attached screenshot PowerShell is mainly created for Azure. So as you know, when we run the test, I will explain it later, we will generate one types of reports called JUnit report. And with Azure DevOps extension, we can simply upload those JUnit reports into Azure CI/CD pipeline, but without any screenshots. So I created this PowerShell script because we already have those screenshots in the agents or in the virtual machines. We can simply upload those screenshots into the Azure CI/CD pipeline. Configuration file. You can see we have multiple configuration files because we have different scenarios, different environments. You can specify the configuration file in the Cypress command line to specify which environment you want to run, like which configuration file you want to run a test, like demo environment or staging or UAT. env.state.json. We are storing some of the environment variables like login username or password or any other SQL information in Cypress.env.json. But as I mentioned, those data is secure. We cannot simply store them and then publish it to GitHub. So we are using this state.json file as a skeleton. Once we have this file, we will download the keywords and upload those data with the actual data. Then we will copy this file into the env.json. Then we can refer to the environment variables in that file. init.env, another PowerShell script, which is used by us to simply download the data from the Azure keywords. Reporter.config.json. Okay, as I mentioned, we are using JUnit report, so we can upload those or publish those JUnit reports into Azure CI/CD pipeline. Then when we check this state.json, it's just a standard JSON file with a key value pair. And we have this syntax as like $square bracket, which is used later to replace the real data from the Azure keywords. A very clear configuration file. So from here, you can see we configured the reporter as multi-reporters. Then we enable the JUnit report, which we will use to publish them into Azure CI/CD pipeline. If JUnit reports generated and published to Azure CI/CD pipeline, okay, already you can see this report in Azure CI/CD pipeline under that test menu. So developers don't need to check the Slack notification or log into Cypress Cloud to check the results. They can simply trigger the pipeline, wait for the test, and check the results in one stop. So this is the main reason why we publish the JUnit report to CI/CD pipeline. They can see the results, they can see the passing criteria, then they can simply make the decision, okay, all tests passed. We can simply deploy the changes to production. This is the package.json. I want to highlight some of the features we added for Cypress. You can see we are using Cypress Grep to build out the test specs into different pipelines or into different runs. Because here at Prospa, for some projects, we have so many cases. If we want to run them all before deploying changes to production, it may take more than half an hour. So we made a decision to use Cypress Grep to filter out some of the test cases or test specs. Like for this smoke, in the Like CI/CD pipeline, we will configure the test to run only smoke, like the test specs with smoke as a text. We also set up another individual pipeline without any deployment to run all the tests, like with stacks as E2E as a daily run, like in the night or in the morning, to make sure, okay, we deployed the changes to production. Also, we can make sure everything works fine with this like daily pipeline. Now, okay, we know about the basic framework. The next question is, okay, how we can integrate those regression tests into the Azure pipelines, which is simple, but you need to have some basic knowledge about YAML file. Cypress already provided one sample YAML file. You can find this one from this link with the actual steps to run the tests. But I created this centralized QA template because we have different projects. We want to use the same template into different projects, which is more maintainable. If we want to make any changes, we don't need to like check out the individual repo, make the changes. We can simply update it in one GitHub repo, which this QA template is stored. Also, in order to make this framework, make this template work for different projects, I created some parameters. So the first one is subscription. Anyways, you need to have some basic knowledge about Azure DevOps. So subscription is used to get the permission to download the secrets, download the data from the Azure Key Vault in the next. So the DevOps team, we have a dedicated DevOps team. They helped to set up the subscription in Azure DevOps, then give the permission for this subscription to have the access to those Azure Key Vaults. Then Key Vault names. So we are downloading the data from these Key Vaults. For some projects, we may need to download data from multiple Key Vaults. So we have these Key Vault names as an array parameter. Test folder. Different projects may have different folder structure. You can see for some of the projects, like the Cypress framework is sitting under integration test folder. For some of them, it may sitting under the testing folder or simply test folder. So we are using this test folder parameter to specify where is the Cypress test or Cypress framework is sitting under. Cypress CLI option. So as I showed before, we can configure Cypress to run with a specific configuration file, or we can configure Cypress to run the test with specific tags. So you can add these CI options into this parameter. Then the Cypress script will run based on these CI options. Last one is Cypress record key. If you are integrating with Cypress Cloud, you need to create one project in the Cypress Cloud, then grab those record key into some of the like pipeline variables. Different projects have different record key. Now we have configured the main YAML file template. Now you are conscious about what's the actual YAML file looks like. Okay, here it is. So I want to highlight two variables here. The first one is pool name. So we are running the tests in our actual agent pool or actual dedicated virtual machines. From the last screenshot, you can see for the developers, they are doing like deploying to daemon or deploying to staging. For this pool, you can see it is VM image as Ubuntu latest, which means those steps are running in the Azure hosted agent pool with the Ubuntu images. But for automation, we want to run them in our dedicated virtual machines. So you can specify this pool name in the Azure pipeline. Also, if you want to run a test in parallel, especially for UI tests, which takes time, you can specify the strategy as parallel. Then you can configure the number of machines or number of agents you want to use. Like if you have 10 specs, you can split them into 5 machines or even 10 machines. Or if you only have some of the API tests, probably you don't need to split them because API tests normally is much faster. Then the first step is we need to download the data from the Azure Key Vault. So all of these tasks, you can see like the task Azure Key Vault, the task this is file creator. They are all provided by Azure DevOps as an extension in the marketplace. You can find them in the marketplace and simply use them here. So the first step is to download those data from the Azure keyboards. If you have multiple keyboards, you can see we have a loop here. It will download all the data from different Azure keyboards. Then .npm file. So if you have the knowledge about npm packages or node modules, you can know, like for Prospa, we built some private node packages specifically in our internal registry, mainly for interacting with Cosmos DB, as I mentioned, like SQL Server database. We need this .npm file, and then we need that npm token to download those private node packages into the framework. Okay, now we have all the data downloaded and generated. So next step is to replace those like the skeleton, how could I say, the skeleton data with the actual data. This replace token, another extension. So it will replace the like data in the target files. You can see now we have the state.json, we have the .npm file, and we have the token interface token prefix. As I showed before, we have the dollar brackets with the like as a template. It will replace all those skeleton data with actual data downloaded from Azure keyboards. Okay, now we have the state.json. We have to copy this state.json to the actual environment.json file. Then Cypress can read this file, can refer to the environment variables in this file. Cypress cannot understand what is state.json file. So we need this step to copy the file. Now we have the test data. Then the following steps are pretty standard. So first step is to install the packages. Then we run the tests. So for this one, you can see we are not referring to any script in the package.json file because I want to make it standard, make it universal for different projects. We are using npx Cypress run command. In this command, you can specify which browser you want to run. And if you want to record the test in the Cypress Cloud, you need to specify this /record flag and also specify the key, which is generated from the project in the Cypress Cloud. Another flag is parallel. You need to specify, if you want to record the test into the Cypress Cloud, you have to add this parallel flag and also this CI build ID, which is a very important flag or parameter here. Cypress Cloud is reading this CI build ID to make sure the tests are running and recorded into the Cypress Cloud test. This ID should be unique. Otherwise, if you run the test with the same ID, it won't do anything. So for this build ID, we are utilizing some of the predefined variables provided by Azure. So you can see we have the build ID, which is unique, but we have this system.job attempt. Previously, we don't have this one, but we found one issue like, okay, now for this run, we found some errors, then we rerun the same test. But if we don't have this system.job attempt, the CI build ID will be the same. As I mentioned, Cypress Cloud won't record those tests. Anyways, tests will be running, but Cypress Cloud cannot record the latest test. So we added this system.job attempt parameter to make it more unique for each run. Then we have these Cypress CI options. You can specify additional CI options for your test. Like you need to specify a different configuration file, or you need to specify a different base URL based on your environment. Now we have the last two steps. We already run the test. Based on the configuration file, we already have the JUnit report. So these two steps are used to publish the JUnit report into the Azure pipeline. Similar, this published test result is another extension in Azure DevOps. Simply publish the JUnit report into Azure CI/CD pipeline, and we are using another PowerShell script to attach the screenshots. Otherwise, we can only see the results without any screenshots, which is not easier for us to do the debugging. Now, if everything works fine, from your Azure CI/CD pipeline, you can see we have a QA stage as a gatekeeper before deploying anything to production. If everything works fine, you can see this like green tick. If there are any tests failing, you can see this red tick. So the developers or QA team members can make the decision, okay, these tests are flaky, we can deploy, or these tests are not flaky, we need to debug. If you click this pipeline, you can go to this detailed page. We can see we have different stages here, deploy, demo, deploy staging. Then after the change is deployed to the staging, we will trigger this QA stage. We are running the tests. Similar, here you can see the passing criteria or passing rate for the test, like 91.1 test passed. If you click, you can see the actual report in a test menu, as I showed before. Then that's a wrap up for the how to integrate with Azure Azure pipelines. Last, I want to share some of the enhancements we did for this whole automation ecosystem. The first one is GitHub integration. So in Cypress Cloud, you can enable this integration with GitHub. How it looks like. So it's very helpful for developers to raise a PR. So if this integration is enabled, every time when the developers raise a PR, like create a PR, like pull request for merging the feature branch to main branch, the test will be running in the CI/CD pipeline. And Cypress Cloud will send one PR comment once the test finished. Like the left screenshot, you can see it will send one PR comment, also add some status check to this pipeline. Also, the developer who triggered the PR will receive one email notification. So another good user story for make developer life easier is developers simply raise the PR from GitHub. They don't need to check anything else like from the pipeline or from the Slack. They simply monitor this PR request in the GitHub, wait for the test to run. If it's finished, they will receive the PR comment regarding the result. Okay, everything works fine. They can merge the PR. By the way, they have to get the review from their peers first. They don't need to run the test from their local and add the screen capture on the result into the PR. Then their PR can see, okay, all tests passed. They can simply approve based on the results. This is what we did before. We integrated with GitHub, but now this is not the case. They don't need to run the test in the local because if they want to run all the tests, it may take time. In the local, they cannot run the test in parallel. Anyway, we have some third-party plugin to run the test in parallel, but it's really resource consuming. So with this one, it's easy. Another one is Slack notification. I mentioned this multiple times. You can enable the Slack notification into different channels. You can specify the channel with different tags. Okay, let's say for this CI/CD pipeline, you can specify a tag. With this CI/CD pipeline, you can send the notifications to the channel with QAs and developers are there. You can create another Slack notification with probably another tag called regression. Yeah, as I mentioned before, we have the daily regression pipeline. So for those tests, probably developers are not that worried about it. So you can simply send those Slack notifications into another channel where the QA members are there. Next is Microsoft Single Sign-On. So for some of our websites, we have to log in via Microsoft Single Sign-On to access the website. So we are using site origin, site session to handle the single sign-on. You can click this link to get the very detailed steps how to do the single sign-on provided by Cypress. So with site origin, you can access cross-origin websites. Like now we have the main website. Then we can use site origin to access the Microsoft Single Sign-On website. Then we can do the login. then we can access back to the main website. Side session, which is pretty helpful to reduce the execution time. So, for Cypress, in order to make all the tests isolated, for each test or for each block, by default, Cypress will clear all the sessions, which means if you have the login functionality, for the first spec, you will log in, run the test. Before the second spec starts, all the session will be cleared. So you have to log in again and then do the tests. So now with the side session, you can make the decision, okay, I don't need to log in every time for each spec. I can wrap up the login functionality into the side session. In the side session, you can add some validation in the validate callback. Okay, let's say after logging, we should see, I don't know, this label or this input. Then Cypress will validate every time. Okay, the first spec we log in, we finish, then it will call this side session. It will do the validation. See, okay, this label exists, which means session is not timed out. It won't do the login steps again. It will simply store the session back to the browser, run the subsequent tests. If the validation, like the condition is not met, like the session can be timed out. It will check, okay, this condition is not met. Cypress will automatically do the login steps. Then it will store the session again for the subsequent tests, which saves a lot of time for us. Last, and okay, I want to very highlight this test replay feature, I think released in Cypress 13. With test replay, you can forget about like screenshots or videos. It's turned on by default if you upgrade to Cypress 13. You don't need to pay anything extra for this feature. With test replay, you can simply debug the tests which are failing or errored out from the CI/CD pipeline. You can check the console log. From the console log, you can see the request or you can see the response. The same for UI automation. You can see whatever you see in your local test runner. So with this test replay, we can get more information about the failure, especially we faced some issues regarding the API automation. Without test replay, we don't know what's the actual root cause for that, because with a screenshot or with a video, we cannot get like the useful information for us. But with test replay, we can simply check the console. Then we found, okay, because we are sending we have one like JSON data called the time or data time. Our test agents are hosted in another time zone. We are sending the time in that time zone into our server, but our server is only like handling the Sydney-based time zone, like Sydney time. So we found, okay, this is because of the time zone issue. We can check this from the local with test replay. Try that. You will find it's very helpful. Okay, wrap up, key takeaways. So as I showed before, Cypress is very easy to integrate with Azure pipeline or probably any other pipeline. What you need is just a YAML file template and make sure it caters for different scenarios. With Cypress, you don't need to create different frameworks, one framework for both UI and API. That's it. With test replay, it's easier for us to do the debugging for the failures or failed test specs from the pipelines. Last, test machines and application access under control. With BrowStack, we have to add some firewall. We have to work with BrowStack team to whitelist some IPs and with security team. But Cypress Cloud, you don't need to upload your code, or you don't need to like check out the code into Cypress Cloud. Cypress Cloud is not saving your code. All the code is downloaded into your own dedicated virtual machines, and all the tests are running in your virtual machines. So you don't need to worry about the security issue. It's just in your dedicated virtual machine. It can be under control for your DevOps team or security team. Cypress Cloud is simply gathering all the test reports, test results, and generating the reports, recording the results for you. I think that's it from my side. And over to you, Jess.
Hello. Thank you, Ivan. That was super helpful. Absolute marathon of content, but we really, really appreciate your expertise and sharing it with the community. So before we get to the Q&A, which we'll save a couple minutes for, we've got a couple of quick things. So the first thing standing between you and Q&A is a check-in for folks that are newer to Cypress. So we'll go ahead and post a poll that should pop up on your screen. So if Cypress Cloud sounded interesting to you, please go ahead and indicate in that pop-up, and we'll have one of our experts follow up with you after the webinar. So like Ivan said, Cypress Cloud is built on top of those test results coming from the Cypress app, and it'll help you optimize a lot of different aspects of your testing program. We've definitely heard a lot about test replay, especially being a game-changing feature for developers. Amazing. So we'll leave that poll open for a little bit longer, but the second thing is the Cypernauts program. So if you are a super user and you enjoyed this conversation and you'd like to continue collaborating with the Cypress team, please consider joining Cypernauts, which is our super user group. Folks that participate in this program are able to communicate with the product team, lend their voice to the future of Cypress, and get early access opportunities and exclusive swag as well. So if you are interested in applying, I will go ahead and drop the link to that application in the chat. So boom, there you go. All right, awesome. And with that, if you go to the next slide, we will maybe just take a couple of questions. I know we're just about at time, but we have received tons of questions, and big shout out to our folks from the support team that are answering the questions that folks have had in chat and the Q&A panel. Really appreciate you. But the first question that came from that we want to ask you, Ivan, is about Azure DevOps pipeline reporting. So there were a lot of questions about basically how to automate tests into Azure DevOps pipeline reporting, and if you have any other like suggestions or what you use at Prospa for having those reports in addition to the Cypress Cloud.
Yeah, okay, good question. So as I showed before, we are generating one JUnit reports, and we are using one extension to publish those reports to Azure pipelines. So you can generate different types of reports, which can be supported by Cypress. Then I think I tried one Mocha Awesome report before, which is a type of HTML report. And then you can find the extension from Azure DevOps Marketplace. If you want to publish those HTML report into the Azure pipeline, it can be doable with those extensions. But with those reports, because here at Prospa, actually we are not like sharing any reports with like BA or product managers. So for us, it's kind of like those JUnit report is mainly for developers, and we are not using any HTML reports. And also we are not using any, as you can see, we are not utilizing any like a BDD framework like Cucumber. So with this JUnit report, we can only see the passing criteria or passing rates. And the developers can see some of the debug or console log, so not console log, debug information from the pipeline. We are mainly focusing on the Cypress Cloud results or the Slack notification. So we can check the Slack messages and then click the link and direct to the Cypress Cloud. And with Cypress Cloud, it's much easier for us to do the debugging. So in a nutshell, you can generate the different reports, and you can find, I think you can find the Azure DevOps extensions if you want to publish those reports into the Azure pipeline. I tried the HTML report before, and also, yeah, JUnit report is working perfectly as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivan. And if anyone has any specific questions about, their particular use case, definitely join our Discord. We've got a very large community that probably has the same question as you. So, or you might find those resources and suggestions there. Ivan, another question for you that we received from a participant. This is probably a big question, could be a whole webinar itself. But is there anything specifically that folks should keep in mind when starting your testing program from scratch? that you want to highlight? I know that's a pretty big question.
Yeah, pretty big question. How could I answer? So firstly, as the automation, if you want to work as an automation engineer or automation tester, you need to understand why we want to automate the test, like API or UI automation. It's a kind of a different concept of manual testing. For manual testing, I don't say like manual testing is not important. So manual testing, you need to think about different scenarios or different edge cases when you do the manual testing. But for automation, I could say it's mainly for automate the happy paths or very critical paths. Regarding the languages, it's fine. I'm not like working as a software developer before. I didn't learn anything specific to any language like JavaScript or Java or .NET. Because for automation, the language support is pretty simple. You don't need to understand, okay, how Java works, like the Java like runtime setup. You don't need to worry about those. You can simply try some courses online regarding the JavaScript setup. What you need to know is just some of the basic setup, like the page object model, or how to do the data driven, or how to interact with different UI elements. From the language side, you don't need to be an expert in the language. I'm not an expert in JavaScript or TypeScript or even Java, but we can find out those very basic introduction regarding the framework online, then you can learn from there. Language is not an issue, it's just a concept. So for automation, you need to think about, okay, what kind of scenarios I want to automate? What kind of issues we may face by automating those scenarios? Like what's the expectation for those? Yep, hopefully this answers your question.
Awesome. Thank you, Ivan. We'll go ahead and take one more before closing out the session. So this one is, do you have some database validation test cases in your framework as well? If yes, do you need some special setup to run them in CI/CD pipelines? Is that a use case that you have, Ivan?
Yes, we have. We have the use cases to verify the data in the SQL Server database and also Customers DB. I think I shared that before. So for this one, we built one private node package. Actually, this is another wrap-up of the Microsoft provided node packages to interact with SQL Server database or Cosmos DB or table storage. With that private node package, you can simply get access to the SQL Server or Cosmos DB and verify the data there. So what you need to do is create those packages, or you can simply use the packages provided by Microsoft. You don't need to wrap it up, but you have to work with your DevOps team to get the access from from the test agent or virtual machines to get the access as a user for those databases. So from accessing the database perspective, you can use some of the third-party libraries. But from the DevOps perspective, you need to work with the DevOps team to get the access to those SQL databases, because our tests are running in the virtual machines. Those virtual machines should be configured to have the access to the database. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Ivan. Ooh. Great. I think with that, we'll go ahead and close out the event. Almost got to everyone's questions, but we'll definitely answer those in the follow-up if we didn't get to yours live. So really appreciate everyone jumping on with us today. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we will share out the recording to this with your email for anyone that registered. So thank you so much, and thank you, Ivan.
Thank you, everyone.